Now, for more on Trump's first state visit to China, I'm joined by Joshua Meltzer. He's Senior Fellow in the Global Economy and Development Program at the Brookings Institution. Welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here.
So, Joshua, the agreements, as we saw, spanned a wide range of industries. Which ones do you think were the most significant for each country?
I think that the interest of China in US natural gas is particularly significant. China's going to have, very significant energy requirements going forward. They are looking to increasingly transition their energy supply to a clean energy supply. It's consistent with their broader climate change objectives. And substituting coal for gas is the next natural step for them. And the US has potentially got a lot of it that they can provide.
And what about from the US perspective? What do you think they were most interested in deals-wise?
Well, if you look back at the 100-day plan, which President Xi and President Trump agreed to earlier this year, one of the key developments there, for instance, within agriculture and improving market access for US beef, and there was sort of further follow-on in those regards. And I think, that could be significant. The US used to be one of the largest beef exporters to the Chinese economy, and that collapsed after BSE in China, and when China restricted beef imports after that. And I think in the financial services sector, there's a lot that could be done there, and discussions around making progress around that, and that was also part of the 100-day plan.
Now, for the deals in certain sectors like beef, rather than the ones that were with specific companies, how does that all get divvied up then when it comes back to the US?
Well, in many respects, this is where the two systems differ, because you have a lot of state-owned enterprises in the US, in China, which can act at the sort of direction of the Chinese Communist Party, whereas in the United States, obviously, there's not that type of political control over private industries. So these are a lot of, in a sense, private industries in the United States that have been looking to tee up these deals that were sort of in the works for a considerable period of time and then were announced, in a sense, at the summit.
Now, how important is this visit and the deals reached when it comes to dispelling some of these inaccuracies about China being a jobs taker versus a jobs creator?
Well, improving investment between the two countries is something that is underdone and should be built on. The US industry has been concerned for a number of years about restrictions of US investment into China. There's a range of barriers that have been put up over the years, and really it remains to be seen how these are going to be effectively addressed. China's obviously got a growing appetite to invest in the United States, and that's good for the US economy and US jobs. So building the investment relationship, I think, is an important development here.
Now, one thing that we know President Trump is very focused on, and President Xi also addressed this, was this issue of the trade deficit. Now, President Xi suggested that increased bilateral trade could be a way to help narrow the trade deficit. How would you compare their different approaches to this topic?
Well, we've seen an evolution, I think, in the way that President Trump, at least, has been talking about the trade relationship with China. If we wind back to the presidential campaign where he was talking about labelling China a currency manipulator and sort of describing China's trade practices as being, significantly negative for the United States, and then a focus on trade deficits. And now we're sort of in a world where we're talking about cooperative relationships. And I think that's sort of potentially a positive development. The deficits are being driven by a whole range of larger macroeconomic factors, which more trade is frankly probably not going to solve. But providing opportunities, certainly for growing US exports to China, is a way forward.
Now, President Xi did also say that China will continue to open its doors for business. What are some of the industries that foreign investors would like to get more access to?
Well, certainly, as China's middle class expands, there's going to be a lot more demand for the types of goods and services that the US is very good at producing. So we can look across, the consumer goods market, electronics, certainly the services sector in terms of finance and education and healthcare. There are a lot of opportunities, I think, for US businesses in China.
And in terms of the pace of the deals, do you think we can expect to see more of these going forward, more of these connections between US companies and Chinese companies?
I think at the political level, President Xi has worked out that a transactional relationship with the US president is the way forward. And so I do expect to see the US-China relationship increasingly defined by these types of announcements.
Now, they have described this as a new era between the two countries. What do you think that's going to look like when you have a very pro-business deal Trump to deal with?
Well, I think we're going to see a focus on these types of deals. I think the period under the previous President Obama, which was focused on developing rules and broader strategies for US leadership in Asia, is not going to be part of this administration's approach to China or Asia more broadly. I think we're just going to see this focus on trying to get the transactions increased.
All right, thank you so much for your insights, Joshua Meltzer, Senior Fellow in the Global Economy and Development Program at the Brookings Institution.